Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to myFootpath's Leadership podcast. I'm here today with Dr. Jodi Bailey, Vice President of Student Affairs at Temple University. How are you today?
I'm doing well, Brad. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And let's start off. What does it say on your sweatshirt? First thing.
So our slogan is "Real success is temple made." That's our motto. When you are temple made, you are resilient, and our perseverance conquers at our institution.
I love it. I love it. Well, I'll tell you, I always like to jump into your pathway, your journey. And I'd love to learn more about, who are the mentors that have helped shape your personal and professional journey to where you are today.
Sure. So personally, I would say that I come from a family of educators. Both my parents were middle school teachers. My father, he recently passed, but my father was a assistant principal and a guidance counselor, and before that, a Spanish teacher. My mother, still with us, was a math teacher for 35 years in the public school system. They went to school together every single day. And when I was younger, when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do in college, I always said I was going to be an English major. And my mother said, "Well, are you going to be a teacher?" And I said, "I don't really want to be a teacher. I don't want to stand in front of the classroom, but I really love what dad does. I love that administration." And I didn't know it, but fast forward later on, here I am, an education administrator. I also had said that I didn't want to do work with younger kids. I really liked older kids. So that's my personal, has always been my family influence. I would say professionally, I grew up with some really great leadership, but when I was at New York University, I was there for about 11 years, and my tenure was under President John Sexton and his leadership team. Linda Mills, who's the president there at NYU now. Um, Linda had a really strong passion for students, for leadership, for crisis response and management. But John has a photographic memory. He remembers every single person and makes you feel so special and unique. And he taught you about what it meant to have pride in your institution, what branding and what it meant to be in and of the city. And I think that that framework of being a part of, he used the word cacophony a great deal, a part of the vibrancy of a city. I think that's what led to my love for complex urban organizations.
Hmm. So I have to ask, so were you or are you good at math and can you speak Spanish?
I do speak Spanish. I'm muy mal at math.
Well, I know you've spent a lot of your career at the intersection of enrollment, student affairs, and student success. So how has your perspective on what students need to thrive evolved over the past decade or so?
It's changed because of the universe we now live in, but also the people that I have had who have influenced my conversation and decision making, right? So now we know, I think we all use that phrase post-COVID often. Post-COVID, we knew particular things.
No.
And those are things that we have to deal with, right? We have to deal with the fact that we're coming on the enrollment cliff. We know that we have to deal with the fact that there was a shift of who our demographic was supposed to be in college this decade. That shifted based off of COVID and who didn't return to school, right? There's different modalities that we can play in now, and there's different levels of issues that we have to work with that stem from a K to 12 education system, right? How are your education systems and pipelines working? And that means, are students ready for their college career? Are they academically the same as they used to be? I would say, though, that I have some very strong influencers who have done the work in enrollment management that talk to me a lot about the intersection of where onboarding a student begins and where handing them off ends, and persistence, and this ebb and flow of work that we do together, right? So I oversee our first year programs, our orientation, our weeks of welcome, the residence halls. All of that is an extension of what our enrollment management team is doing, right? And they think in a lot of data and a lot of numbers and a lot of trends. And how do you know? And where are they coming from? And how do they pipeline in to be successful? I never thought about my role in that before. And then I worked at an institution in New Jersey where I was a partner with our enrollment management vice president, and we had to be in lockstep about who was staying here, why they were staying here. They were giving financial aid. I had to do the follow-up conversation to say, Is this what you need? What else is there that we can do to wrap around services for you? And that's when I started coming into the idea that student success is kind of a three-legged approach, right? It's the enrollment management, it's the data-driven piece and the onboarding. It's the academic success piece and my partners in that field to understand what are our faculty and our students' experience inside of the classroom and outside of the classroom support. And then what do I do to help support that academic mission of the institution? How do I make sure that we are leading the charge in the conversation on giving students the tools and resources to be able to stay through college? And that has changed my perspective on who student affairs are and how do we work inside of an institution itself.
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit about that. And maybe part of this is that first generation students, but also just overall, I think in general. And I oftentimes think of my experience as a freshman on campus, coming from a different state, very new environment, and a little bit nervous, right? How do I fit in? How do I belong?
Right.
How do you go about balancing, and supporting the well-being of a student? And again, it could be a freshman, it could be, someone later on in their academic career. How do you balance that well-being with academic achievement? And I'll even kind of tie in, maybe you look at well-being also as how do you make sure that student feels like they belong?
Yeah. I love that question because I just came back from a conference this weekend where I sit on a task force nationally that examines the intersection between student well-being and student success. And how do you shape the conversation for executive leadership to understand what you need to have as an ecosystem and culture on the campus in order to promote that? For me, with our students, it starts with an ethos of care. It doesn't matter how complex your organization is, but can they see themselves there? Can they see themselves having a conversation with somebody who's going to help them? If you take an example of first generation students, and we can say first year, but any year a first gen student is attending college, their families also don't know what to expect. And so, as we are creating a curriculum for our first year students and our students holistically, we just were finishing conversations about the fact that you probably need to have a track for the families to understand what is their role, who are they in this path together. Give them somebody in particular. If it is Jodi, if they know that Jodi's name is the person that they talk to at Temple, and we're a 30,000 student university, but they have a person, they have an anchor that they can go to and know that they don't need to be embarrassed. They don't need to worry about asking for assistance, and they know that they're going to get the help that they need. That's the first piece of belonging for me. And having that start before they even enter and making sure that people know that we're there. But then from there, you jump into a higher level of you have to have this system of programs, of services that overlaps with what the goals of the institution are. Are you having constant assessment? Are you having constant conversations about collaboration? Do your policies, do your procedures, do the ways that you are structured align organizationally to promote that belonging, to promote that success in and out of the classroom? That's the work. Creating culture is actually the hardest piece of putting systems in place because you have to have people. At my institution, we are a long-standing public institution where people have worked for 20 to 30 years. They are invested in the work that we do. We all know that you can be Temple made, but they also helped make Temple. They created the spreadsheet in 1992 that got people to be enrolled in classes, and that it's okay to move forward. You're helping move that forward, but people and culture and belonging on all of the different levels at the college matter.
Right. And as you look at kind of the past and the present, what are some of those barriers that students face today that they, maybe didn't face 5 or 10 years ago?
5 or 10 years ago, things were funded differently. And I don't mean because of federal funding here or there. I mean, in general, our transportation systems are not funded at the same level that they need to be in order to help with mass transportation. Whether you're in a rural space or an urban space, transportation for students is incredibly difficult. Food and housing insecurity. We have national numbers that show that 37 to 40% of students at any given point in time are either food or housing insecure, meaning that they don't know where they're getting a meal or they're getting a bed in a 3 month period of time. That's an astronomical number. If you look at Temple as a whole, 30,000 students, if we're looking at 40% of those students, you're looking at about 13,000 kids who don't know where they're eating or they're sleeping. What does that mean in terms of those that belonging? And that's because there's not as much there's just not as much support services out there as we need for families to be able to continue living as the cost of living increases. And it's a difficult thing to navigate. Where are you responsible for the holistic approach of a student? If you're ours and you're in our community, we believe we have responsibility to help you get your degree. We've said, come to us. We know what your financial income is. We know where you're thriving from, and we know what high school you went to. So we've known all those things when we accepted you. Now there is a responsibility to get you through it if we've said yes.
Well, and I can imagine too, if you're wondering where your next meal will come from. That really puts you in a difficult position when you're in the classroom and you
Yeah.
have to think about what the professor is teaching.
It's a hierarchy of need, right? If you don't feel safe and you are not nourished, you cannot be on the next level of advancement in terms of being able to thrive. You're not thriving if you are hungry. You're not thriving if you are sleep deprived. You are not thriving if you don't know what life is going to bring you as soon as you leave the classroom.
Yeah, absolutely. Are there certain programs that are in place that Temple, has to help support that?
So we're really excited. In the fall of 2025, we started the work of the Essential Needs Hub, and it was started as a concept of putting offices together that were going to help students be able to navigate the university like a one-stop, but only more for the wraparound services, right? We thought, you put the dean of students, you put military services, you put these offices in the same space. After a moment, I thought our bookstore had left. It was a Barnes and Noble and it had moved to a different space. And I had 30,000 square feet of space to be able to design something. And I said, what if I'm just the best landlord? And we put together these offices and these services that create an ecosystem of care. I did a lot of work with the John Bon Jovi Foundation, and they talk about dignity and care in the work that they do. And it resonated, and it's magnificent theoretically and philosophically. And so, what if we created an ethos of care for our students? And so we have the Essential Needs Hub that puts together emergency and crisis resources, off-campus resources, a benefits navigation center for federal and state and local benefits for our students. We have a bike shop that repairs bikes. We have a thrift store so that you can get clothing. We have a Zen den so you can sit and relax, especially if you're neurodivergent and commuting back and forth on campus is a lot. But then we put in space so that other administrative services who do not report to my division come in and they have a space to be able to meet the students. And that's what I meant by being the best landlord. If I give you if I give you the space and I give you the resources, can you come under this philosophical umbrella with us of meeting students where they are with dignity? And we have peer mentors that work in trauma-based intake so that when you come in, a student who knows you is going to meet with you. We're tracking data. We're working with the Hope Center on our assessment to say, this work matters. It's going to move a student forward. It's going to keep them here, and it's going to help them thrive at the institution. And
Wow.
the whole thing opens in 6 weeks.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I mean, talk about, oftentimes schools will talk about things that might be benefits to coming to our university, but talk about, I mean, when you look at competitors or the higher education landscape, that is a differentiator, what you just explained.
Brad, let me tell you that our president is a differentiator. John Fry asks and pushes you to think innovatively. He says, "What are we doing that is not happening right now?" And as soon as I told him this idea, he said, "Let's go." And we have moved nonstop since then because truly our students matter to us. I know that it's hard when you're involved in an organization, but we see them every day and we want them to be there. And so, how do we give them the best thing that they can in order to be able to pay it forward to their families and to their friends? And we have people who are partnered with us that care about community and civic engagement. And that's the work we're doing right now.
Well, and when you look at that, community engagement, taking that, as that student continues to persist through college, now they're thinking about the workforce and now they're thinking about a career. And so what are some of the things that you're doing to make certain that students are career ready?
I love that question because I sit on a board of an organization called Campus Philly. And the whole goal of Campus Philly is to create a system within the Philadelphia and greater Philadelphia area so that our young professionals come in and that they are ready to be part of what is happening in Philadelphia. So it brings together people from all different trades across the city, Comcast or, transportation, other colleges, and it takes a look nationally at what is happening, what are the trends that are happening nationally and within our city. How are we onboarding our students, even when they first come in, to the city itself? So, like College Fest is a gigantic festival that we have where all college students in Philadelphia are welcome to come in. And then we have programs about what does it mean to be an international student in the workforce of Philadelphia? What does it mean to be part of the arts and culture of the city? What does it mean to be a Philadelphian? And then what are we doing on the campus level to partner with our K to 12 school system to talk to them? What does college mean? And what do you want to be when you grow up? How are you partnering that the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has metrics that they would like us to meet in order to graduate from the institution? How are we meeting those? And then even how are we meeting with the health determinants of the Commonwealth to say not only have we developed through our academic programs and internships and externships these models, but how have we given them the healthy tools to be able to survive as a new professional going in? And we have all of these partnerships. We do a lot of work in terms of innovation and community development with North Philadelphia. How are we supporting the businesses along the corridor that are part of our institutional community? There's a lot of conversation that way about what our responsibility is as a public anchor institution in Philadelphia.
Well, and then, after these students graduate and have phenomenal careers, how do you ensure that you engage with alumni? Because if you can engage an alumni and if that alumni can speak highly of Temple University, that's many would consider the best marketing you could have.
It's funny that you asked that because being Temple made was a marketing conversation that we had a long time ago. And as universities go and they brand and they think about who they are, every single alumni member, when they've come back and spoken, they've said, I am Temple made. And we actually said, how do you tell them that that's not who we are? Right. And that's where we started our new campaign of um, Temple made is success and all of the different I am Temple made because of our alumni. My example is that I was mini golfing in Wildwood, New Jersey about 2 years ago, with my boys and my husband. And I had to cross like a 3-lane highway to get to this mini golf place. And I had a Temple t-shirt on. And literally somebody honked their horn and yelled out the window, "Go Owls," as I was running. And my son turned and he was like, "You're famous." And I said, "I am not famous." I was like, that is, people have pride in being an owl. I think that what we need to do is say, how do you now, as an alumni, keep that pride going for somebody else? Are you tied to how many Temple students who graduated are working with you? How are you creating mentorship programs for them? Where are we not meeting the needs of the workforce because of the education that we have? Come in, be part of our boards, be part of our conversation. Come to the football games, come to the basketball games. Let's bring your child to work day with us. We're trying really very hard to be part of the city of Philadelphia. We have a responsibility to that city because we are 300,000 alumni strong. Let's show that pride. And so, for instance, with FIFA and the MLB and the PGA, we're all in Philadelphia, plus the 250th anniversary. We have an entire squad of Temple Owls who are part of the Fambassador program, and that is the welcoming program of thousands of people across the city that the city of Philadelphia created to welcome people in. We should have our owls be those welcomers. We are the first people that they should be high-fiving when they come out of the SEPTA.
Well, absolutely. And you had mentioned, I mean, the proximity of Temple is such an advantage. I mean, where you are and what you can take advantage of is really, again, it's something that's very unique and something that really helps Temple shine.
Yeah, and we play that 6 degrees of Temple Maid, right? There's hardly no one in the tri-state area that doesn't have somebody who went or has a cousin who went to or got a certificate from the university. And so, how do we carry that responsibility with us? And the president asks us that all of the time. How do we give back to a city that gives us so much?
So now let's talk a little bit about a different student population. So nationally, when you see there's millions of adult learners, that 24-year-old and older student that has some college credit but no credential or degree. And so, what role do you think universities play in helping former students return and complete their education? And then maybe you can also speak to how Temple approaches that.
Yeah, I think there's a great responsibility to that. There are some states who are doing a lot of work with that some college no degree program, going back and offering incentives to universities who onboard our past students who could benefit from that degree program. And I've had those conversations. My perspective is this. If you said yes to somebody coming into a college, then there's a responsibility that you have to help them finish. And we need to find out the reasons why. Why are you not able to do that? If you do come back to us, what services do we have for you that can assist you? Is it a larger night class population? Is it more online programs? Is it flexible hours that the university is open for you? Is it a childcare system? If you're aging out of the foster youth system, or how are we helping you navigate how to become an adult in a very complex world when you've already had to go through a lot of complexity? Are you doing elder care? Are we do we do anything for you because you have dependents that you also need to take care of? All of those are real questions that universities should be asking because that population grows. That some college no degree population, especially because of COVID, got larger. And how are we reaching back out to them to say, come back. We have systems in place for you. Let's take care of you. Let's get you what you wanted. Let's show the world that you have perseverance.
Well, and I'll tell you, I love higher education in general as far as the foundation of being a good steward. I mean, I love that foundational framework. And I think, Dr. Bailey, everything that you've spoken about and how Temple really shines, you've really spoken about a lot of elements that allow the institution to really, gain a foothold as far as a number of different elements to make the institution and student stronger and more successful. How do you make sure, just going back to the word steward, how do you make sure that
Mm.
that you and the institution are really being able to implement and continue to thrive and grow? And then in 10 years, where do you want to be with some of these changes?
I laugh only at the 10 years because I'm like, who knows what 10 years looks like now, right? I would say this. I would say our leadership team has been involved in a lot of consistent and ongoing improvement, right? And so really creating systems of continuous improvement plans. We're currently partnered with the National Institute of Student Success to say, here are the gaps that you have at your institution that you should focus on to be able to put data and assessment tools to the work that you're doing. You're doing great work, but here's where your gaps are. Here's where you need to look forward. We look at transfer students. We're looking at first gen students. We're looking at DFW rates for students and catapult classes that either keep you in or push you out based off of when they are in the semester, right? Where we have a continuous improvement plan happening through our strategic plan. The secondary piece is that through the president and the leadership team's strategic plan, I love it because I'm student affairs, so I love a good pun. But and we're in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, so the student success is the keystone of our arch to have our university move forward. It is the number one thing in student success innovation. And so how are you doing that work and thinking about that in every piece of ethos that's happening? Where would we like to be for the future? We want to be the number one institution that people look at for the work that we do to support our students, for the research that we do and the innovation and partnership that we have, not just with the city of Philadelphia, but within the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And we are an international campus. And so how are we being responsible partners and creating a workforce and an alumni force that helps push forward the work that we're trying to do within the international and national landscape. It's important work. And how do we create those leaders? And how do we hold ourselves accountable to that? And to all of the people who are paying us to do that work?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So one of the questions I have for you as well as, you hear about the challenges, that fa the headwinds that face higher education, and you had alluded to it earlier around the cliff being one. But another one that I would mention is, the value of education. How do you go about answering that question for parents, and maybe it's a first generation parent or really any parent, as far as, hey, talk to me about the value of going to temple. And you've listed, many reasons for
Yeah.
temple as it is, but how do you address that when you're sitting across the table from parents?
I frame it like this, Brad. Every year, families write a check to us. They write, electronically, whatever method it is that you're paying to be there is the price of a new car for them. And there are certain expectations that come in when you're riding in a new car. And just because it is expensive to run and it's complex to run an organization doesn't mean that those families shouldn't have those expectations that they get a new car every year from us, right? There's a certain amount of customer service. There's a certain amount of expectation in terms of quality. There's a certain amount of visualization of what things look like when you come in, because you and I both know if you walk into a hotel where everything has fallen down and it doesn't look great, you're kind of like, I don't know how the rest of this is going to go, versus if you keep something looking the way that it should. And it's a lot of money and it's an investment. For me, with Temple in particular, I talk a lot about what does your whole family get when you are an owl? Because it's not just one of you, there's an entire group of you in the nest. And what does that mean? And so we talk about financial literacy for families. We talk about resources to the food pantry. Anybody who's part of our temple community, we don't ask where food is going. We just give it to you if you need it. And so you can help provide for others. We talk about those pipeline and free high school programs that students that are other members of that family can go through in order to get to college. And then we talk about how do we help you get a job? How do we help you be a part of what's happening next? But we talk about what the whole family means to be part of our community. And it's really important. And if you don't do that strategically and cohesively, they don't see themselves there. And then they don't see the value in their kid being there because Amazon's open 24 hours and pays $35 an hour. They're getting more. They're getting more than just the $35 an hour.
Well, excellent. Well, this has been a great conversation. Dr. Jodi Bailey, thank you so much. We really appreciate the insights and learning a lot more about Temple University. So thank you very much. It's been great talking to you.
Yeah, thanks. It's great talking to you, and I really appreciate you having me.